Strengthen your understanding of governance and policy design. The 12-week graduate course in public policy begins 10th January 2026. Apply by 30th November 2025 to avail a 10% early bird scholarship.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
As 2025 draws to a close, India finds itself in a difficult position geopolitically. The polarization in the US domestically, because of the MAGA movement, has strained the bipartisan consensus on the New Delhi-Washington relationship. Russia is stuck in Ukraine, and there are structural constraints, difficulties in the relationship with China. It is natural then that India is seeking to revitalize plurilateral arrangements. Very recently, on the sidelines of the G20 summit in South Africa, India, Canada, and Australia announced a trilateral partnership focusing on emerging technologies. But what does this development mean? Where is it headed? A lot of details about this partnership has not yet come out. I think sometime in 2026, we'll have more clarity. But I think it's quite timely that we discuss what this partnership means, what are its various dimensions, and what areas of technology could these three partners possibly work together on. To do so, to discuss this, I have with me Anwesha, a tech policy researcher with Takshashila, and William Pitts, who is interning with Takshashila and focusing on Indo-Pacific. I am Lokendra Sharma. I am a tech geopolitics researcher with the Takshashila Institution. Welcome all the listeners. So I'll start with the first question to Anwesha. What exactly unfolded at the sidelines of G20 that led to the announcement of the trilateral partnership? Can you take our listeners through what exactly went down?
Sure. So thank you, Lokendra, for having us here. And I think you highlighted a very key sort of background to this whole partnership. And I'll maybe expand a bit on that, which is what then led to this meeting in G20, where the leaders of the three states met and then announced this partnership. So essentially, we'll focus on China and the US. China currently dominates between 70 to 90% of the global supply chains, which are essential for advanced industries. And so this includes electric vehicles, semiconductors, defense systems, and clean energy tech like wind turbines and solar panels. Now, this dominance is comprehensive. China not only controls the mining of many critical minerals, but also the refining and processing stages, making it an indispensable hub of the entire supply chain related to critical minerals. And not only do they have a concentration of power, but also Beijing has demonstrated a readiness to weaponize this through export controls since about the late 2023. China has imposed regulations restricting the export of highly strategic materials, including gallium, germanium, graphite, and rare earth elements. So this has been a trend, this has been a pattern, and we've even seen recent export controls as well, which essentially signals that China can use its control on the supply chain as leverage in trade negotiations or political disputes, and thereby creates a vulnerability for other countries that are reliant on these supply chains. Now, on the other hand, we have Trump, and his term has so far been marked by resurgent trade wars and rollbacks of climate change commitments, etc. So now this combination of supply chain vulnerabilities and an unstable geopolitical climate requires nations such as India, Australia, and Canada to partner and diversify critical supply chains, protect emerging technology ecosystems, and also secure energy transition. So it's sort of against this geopolitical backdrop that the three countries launched this partnership, and also each of the partners have bilateral agreements with each other on very similar areas when it comes to tech and innovation, cybersecurity, etc. So I think it makes it a bit more convenient for the three countries to partner, and there's a similar sort of vision when we're talking about net zero future and all of that. So I think it makes a lot more sense for these three countries to partner on these topics.
What exactly have they announced in this trilateral partnership?
So, as you correctly mentioned, we don't know quite a lot as of now. So, just drawing from what was announced from the three countries, they've essentially agreed to strengthen their ambition in cooperating on critical and emerging technologies, which, like I previously said, is to complement existing bilateral initiatives. And so this initiative will draw on the natural strengths of the three countries, will emphasize green energy innovation and building resilient supply chains, including and especially in critical minerals. It will also work towards strategic collaboration for net zero and drive further diversification of supply chains. So this is essentially the core of the partnership. And also they're looking at mass adoption and development of AI, particularly for improving the lives of citizens. Things perhaps like building digital public infrastructure with AI involved is something we can expect.
So before I come to you, Will, I'll ask, I think, one more question to Anwesha. And Anwesha, you have recently written about it as well on Takshashila's website. And you've suggested multiple areas because, see, this is still being worked out.
Yes.
And it's very useful to suggest areas on which the three countries can work together and, find common ground. And you have actually in detail suggested multiple areas where the three countries can work together. And you have also highlighted what are the respective strengths they are building to that partnership. So maybe walk us through some of those ideas that you have suggested.
Yeah, so I can broadly divide the ideas into three main areas. One is you have critical minerals and green energy tech. Another is research and development. And the third would be cybersecurity and maritime domain awareness. So when we're talking about critical minerals, I think we've already spoken quite a bit about, growing manufacturing. India has been growing manufacturing capabilities for advanced battery components and renewable energy systems. And so pairing that with Australia's mineral resources and Canada's expertise in metallurgical processing is something that can be looked at. And I think this is something we can expect to come out of this in any case. In addition to that, there can be a dedicated sort of critical minerals investment fund, which could then pool capital to support mining exploration and eco-conscious refining projects. So this can again help with supply chain diversification, reducing dependency on single sources. And in addition to that, having urban mining, recycling e-waste, multiple such initiatives to create a circular economy loop to then ensure, long-term mineral security, minimizing environmental impact, etc. So that's on the first, critical minerals and green energy tech.
So, sorry, before you move forward to other ideas, Will, do you have any thing to contribute on the critical minerals bit?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for having me. I am an Australian, so have a very brief, I guess, kind of summary of what Australia's critical mineral background and environment looks like. So as has been mentioned, Australia has the fourth largest reserves of critical minerals in the world and is also the fourth largest producer of critical minerals. And among them, the largest and probably the most significant in this partnership in particular, which focuses on green technologies, is lithium. And so Australia is the largest producer of lithium in the world. But kind of as Anwesha touched on, a lot of that is processed and in China. I think 99% of Australia's lithium that's produced in Australia is then exported to China for processing. More broadly, I guess, across critical mineral assets in Australia, Australia is estimated to have around 5% of all global reserves. And yeah, as I touched on before, is the fourth largest producer in the world with around 8% of global production. And yeah, so outside lithium mining, which as has been touched on is a resource which is vital for like EVs, drones and battery storage. The country also holds the world's largest zinc reserves with 28%. and is a crucial source of germanium and gallium, which are very essential in the semiconductor industry.
So, okay, given Australia has some reserves on critical minerals, do you see the partnership with India on this front mushrooming and, being beneficial for both?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I think kind of, as we're talking about in a sense, I think probably the most, or one of the biggest aims for Australia in this partnership and kind of in all critical mineral related partnerships would be to diversify the processing and any exporting nations to not have such reliance on China as basically the whole world has. And so I think that's where India's emerging processing industry and other technology industries such as the EV and semiconductor, I guess, companies and anything in that field are going to be requiring these critical minerals that come from Australia. So I think that's where there is growth for opportunity for growth in terms of exporting the critical minerals from Australia to India.
And back home, what kind of fear do you see given China's dominance in critical minerals? Are you seeing some conversations happening in academic and policy circles on how this dependence is harmful for Australia and how it has to be reduced on an urgent basis?
Honestly, I haven't seen too much, but again, it's not my primary area of it, like my primary area of research. But I think more broadly with respect to China and a reliance on China as an exporter. China is our largest export partner. And at one point, 5-10 years ago, it was around 40% of all of Australia's exports went to China. And again, within that coming critical minerals, which have only become more crucial and more of an export to China. And there was a lot of attention, not just in academic circles, but also more broadly in the media about how much of reliance we have on China, which could potentially be weaponized as it has been multiple times in the past. For example, in 2010, I think it was, with Japan. And so, yeah, I definitely think, while I'm not too sure about critical minerals specifically, there's definitely a fear of over-relying on China for our exports and for more generally.
So, Will, we plan to circle back to you at a later stage now and I have some more questions on Australia. But before that, I'll go back to Anwesha and let her continue on some of the ideas that the three partners can work on. So you have spoken about critical minerals. You spoke some bit about urban mining, I think. Yeah. So what are other areas? Can you walk us through?
Yeah. So I think another key area would be research and development. So, accelerating innovation in emerging and deep technologies, investing in collaborative R&D programs. You can have, incentivize a consortia of academia, startups and industry to sort of co-develop breakthrough AI tools, semiconductors, quantum materials, and biomanufacturing processes. Also, just drawing lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic, pooling resources for vaccine production, mRNA innovation, rapid diagnostics. These are some broader research areas that the three countries can partner on and incentivize R&D in. Furthermore, on just the tech aspect, promoting open source technologies is something that has been spoken about quite a bit, whether that's in India and EU. So that's another thing that the three countries could partner on. This could be another key initiative.
Maybe I'll just take a minute to emphasize why collaboration on open technology is so crucial, right? So what we have seen in the last few years is that supply chains have been weaponized. And we are facing a dual challenge. One is supply chain security and one is supply chain warfare. So, and developing states especially do not necessarily have the capacity to ensure that their supply chains are resilient and also secure, right? And that's why I think open technologies come as a good solution, because at the core of both supply chain security and supply chain warfare, it is proprietary technologies. Okay. Right? You can only weaponize something that is proprietary, or you can only, compromise easily, I would say, supply chains that have more proprietary stuff in them. When technology flows are open, when the underlying basis of that technology is open, right, then you can at least tackle both these challenges. But open technology would need a lot of work for it to become workable, right? As in, a lot of stakeholders would have to come together to actually push it through for pushing for its adoption and uptake. Maybe we can start with government procurements and promotion of open source softwares in government procurements and so on. There are a bunch of ideas that Pranay and I have, for instance, written about on Open Technology Math3.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things these three states can do together on promotion of open technology, and not just software but also hardware, right? In telecom front, and also sort of help reduce the immense leverage some critical nodes in the global supply chain enjoy. For instance, we know about the hold that, for instance, Nvidia has in the chips supply chain. And so on. There are a host of examples. There are only very few countries and companies having a very strong hold on tech flows. So open technology Math3 or any sort of open tech partnership would definitely help all three, India, Canada and Australia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, please proceed, Anwesha. What were other ideas?
Yeah, so I mean, you also touched upon this, cyber security, cyber warfare. So that also segues very nicely into my next point, which is on cybersecurity and maritime domain awareness. So both of these have been talked about quite a bit. And now as we move into, more and more AI age from an information age, cybersecurity risks have become far more complicated. It's easier to launch cyber attacks, etc. And so that's a threat that all countries across the world is facing, but especially so within, India, Australia, and Canada. And so already I believe Australia and India have been discussing a bilateral agreement for data sharing, for threat awareness, sharing intelligence on cyber security threats. So making this a key part of their agenda as part of this trilateral partnership would also be beneficial for all three. Establishing a cyber resilience task force, joint threat intelligence sharing platforms, just advancing defenses to protect critical infrastructures from evolving risks. So again, there, you have cyber professionals in India who could be developing robust defenses, sharing intelligence on regional threats. You could have Australia coordinating national cyber defense strategies, and then you have Canada that could also be providing advanced cyber defense tools. Now, similarly, when we talk about maritime domain awareness, you could leverage Canada's advanced space assets. India, Australia already have an established naval cooperation to secure critical sea lines. And so
just a second, Anwesha. I'd like to branch off. So right now you're suggesting what all these three partners could bring to the table. And you also spoke about what Australia could bring to the table on the naval front or the cyber front and so on. I think I'll come to you, Will, now. So what tech areas do you think Australia is doing good on? Like generally the tech sectors. And what do you think it can bring to the table going forward?
Thanks for the question. I think kind of to start with a bit of a background into Australia's technology industry generally. Kind of throughout history, we've had a few inventions, mostly funded, I guess, through the CSIRO, one being the invention of Wi-Fi, which is quite crucial, especially to someone like me. But there have been major cuts in the past 10 years to CSIRO, and kind of as a result of that, in part, the last financial year was the first where Australia's tech sector shrunk, the first in 17 years. And kind of to indicate this difference in tech investment, in particular through CSIRO, in 1982, the CSIRO, I'm going to have to say that a few times, made up 0.16.
Sorry, for the benefit of our listeners, what is this phrase, this abbreviation you're using repeatedly?
So the CSIRO is an Australian government-funded organisation which stands for the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, and it's basically responsible for scientific research and its industrial and commercial applications in Australia. And so that organisation, as I said before, in 1982 made up 0.16% of Australia's GDP, but now by 2023 to 24, this had dropped to just 0.03%, which is less than 20% of that original figure. However, there have in recent times been some successful tech companies in Australia, such as Atlassian and Canva. So in terms of what areas that Australia excels in the tech space, I think one is cyber. So Australia's cyber sector is in the top 10 largest cyber sectors in the world in terms of revenue generation. And in particular, and kind of to further this, the Harvard University's National Cyber Power Index ranks Australia in the top 5 most powerful cyber nations, and ranks Australia first for defence capabilities in cyber defence capabilities, and fourth for intelligence with respect to cyber. So I think that's probably a major one. On the defence side, there's been a few tech investments in recent years, especially anti-drone related. One being the world's most affordable high-energy laser weapon, which is called Apollo, which is capable of destroying 200 drones on a single charge, and so is seen as crucial to combating drones for a cheaper price into the future. This has already been exported to at least one NATO state in Europe, and could therefore potentially be exported as part of the arrangement with Canada or India into the future. And kind of a bit of a tangent here, but I think one of the advantages of this agreement or this dynamic is that any technologies that are kind of formed within it and without US involvement don't require any US approval for deployment. So in the defense, I guess, field, not requiring US deployment, such as this Apollo technology, is incredibly beneficial for use in any conflict scenarios.
Thanks, Will. Anwesha, any final closing thoughts on what other areas?
No, I think this is quite a comprehensive set of areas. I mean, there could be endless things, but it's also important for the partnership to have a very pointed agenda for, taking the work forward. Otherwise, it just ends up becoming a nice to have sort of partnership. Yeah.
So, I would just make one or two final remarks before we close. So, 2025 has been a year of geopolitical upheaval.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with Trump's second presidency that started earlier this year. And as we enter 2026, I think a lot of countries across the continents in Europe, Asia, and again, Australia, Asia, and then, Americas, Africa, a lot of countries, whether they were allies of US, whether they were partners, or whether they were contesting players, they're realizing that they can no longer be very sure of how the US will act in certain matters, tech matters, trade matters, geopolitical issues. That predictability aspect is a bit strained. And some players, I would say, for Canada, especially, for instance, the reliability aspect may be very deeply damaged, right? So a lot of countries, I think, are now looking to find partners beyond the US. And in that sense, going forward, in 2026 and 2027, I think, if given that US continues in its current course, we may see more plurilateral arrangements, issue-based plurilateral arrangements. And given the nature of geopolitics today, which is dominated by technologies, these plurilateral arrangements will have a lot to do with technology. So it may have to do with biotech or nuclear or a host or chips or AI and so on. And even critical minerals. So not just tech, but also materials, right? Materials that are very important. And we can expect that India will push for or strive for more such plurilateral arrangements. And we may see the India, Australia, Canada trilateral maturing a bit faster than in usual course of action. So we may see more action on this front going forward. So with that, listeners, we'll close this conversation. If you think there are some areas in which these three countries can work together and we have not covered them, Please feel free to write to us, share your thoughts with us. If you disagree with our prescription, if you disagree with our reading of the world and where it is heading in the next 1-2 years, please do let us know as well. Thank you so much, Anwesha and Will, for joining us today.
Thank
Thank you so much.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaInst or our website takshashila.org.in.